All right, let's just get right into it. $250,000. I mean, that is a massive, totally life-changing chunk of cash, right? And that's exactly what's on the line in the absolutely wild scenario we're breaking down today. But, of course, there's a catch. To get the money, you have to survive 100 feet in the air, completely exposed to the elements for 30 days straight.
So before we get into the literal nuts and bolts of this challenge, I want you to really put yourself in the contestants' shoes for a second. Picture yourself dealing with extreme isolation, freezing, relentless wind, and a living space that's literally shrinking right beneath your feet. What's your breaking point? Honestly, what would you endure to walk away with a small fortune?
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating case study on human endurance, risk management, and, as you'll see, the extreme fragility of the human ego. We are breaking down a chaotic, super high-stakes psychological survival challenge dreamt up by MrBeast.
Section 1. Trapped in the sky, 100 feet above reality. Now, when you're trying to survive freezing rain and brutal winds inside these tiny tents, your background is everything. The initial setup here is just absolutely brutal. Two complete strangers get hoisted onto a suspended platform way up in the sky. And here is the twisted rule that completely changes the psychology of the whole game. If one person taps out, they don't split the money. The person who stays keeps all of it. So they're literally incentivized to want their partner to quit. It's wild. And this brilliantly highlights the dynamic between our two contestants, Alison and Angus. Alison, she's a heavy equipment demolition worker. She's totally unfazed by the terrifying heights and adapts to the harsh environment super fast. Angus, on the other hand, is a UK TV dating star. He hates the cold, he's constantly struggling to get comfortable in his tiny tent, and he is terrified of the edge. It just goes to show how your background totally dictates your baseline survival strategy when you're suddenly thrust into the elements.
Moving on to Section 2, the cost of failure, the shrinking world.
You see, this isn't just an endurance test against the weather. The mechanics of the game are basically designed to constantly crank up the tension. If you fail a challenge up here, you don't just miss out on some nice luxury item, your actual physical living space shrinks. They literally unscrew the platform right out from under them. Take a look at the rules for the Day 5 challenge. The contestants have a shot to win brand new elevated weatherproof tents. The steps? Pretty simple. Throw a tennis ball, hit the target, and win the upgrade. But if either of them misses, they lose a massive 1/4 of their entire floor platform. Alison locked right in, threw her ball, and nailed the target on her very first try. Angus, though, well, he buckled under the immense pressure of trying not to let her down. He missed, and just like that, boom, 25% of their world completely vanished.
So the really crucial point here is how these consequences compound over time. By day 10, the psychological fatigue is hitting them hard, and they're faced with the terrifying saw blade challenge. This is a grueling 24-hour continuous test of vigilance. Basically, they have to constantly press a red button to reset this falling saw blade. If they fail and that saw cuts the rope, a massive crate holding 30 days' worth of upgraded food is dropped 100 feet straight to the ground. And to make matters even worse, a failure also triggers the destruction of another quarter of their floor.
You can really see the mounting attrition tracking here. During that intense 24-hour saw challenge, Alison eventually had to get some sleep, right? So she trusted Angus to watch the button. But Angus's eyes glazed over, and he actually lost consciousness. The saw cut the rope, all of their high-quality food plummeted down to the earth, and another 25% of their floor was dismantled. So now half of their entire living space is entirely gone directly because of consecutive mistakes made by Angus.
Angus honestly captured the vibe perfectly when he said, "I don't need to have a nightmare about the game because I'm living the nightmare." The immense psychological toll, plus the crushing weight of guilt, is just destroying his morale. He is painfully aware that his human errors are jeopardizing not just his own chances, but Alison's entire mission too.
Which brings us to Section 3. Angus falls, Alison remains. The balance beam.
Okay, it's day 15, and a super desperate Angus is heavily contemplating just quitting so he stops being a liability. But then, the host comes back with an offer of redemption, a chance to win back the upgraded tents and the food he lost. But the physical stakes? Absolutely terrifying. They have to cross a 30-foot balance beam suspended 100 feet in the air, touch the other side and come back. And if you fall, you don't just lose the challenge, you are immediately eliminated from the whole game. Desperate to restore his reputation, Angus steps up and volunteers. He gets out onto that wildly shaking beam, loses his balance and falls. Just like that, his time in the sky is instantly over.
Let's quickly review this timeline just to really grasp the rapid escalation we've seen in the first half of this explainer. Day 1, 2 total strangers arrive. By day 5, a quarter of the floor is gone. Day 10, all their good food and another quarter of the floor are destroyed. Now, they do get a brief, kind of surreal morale boost on day 14 when a literal blimp delivers a payload of beef sticks. But the very next day, Angus falls from the beam. So now, Alison is left completely alone on this tiny, freezing platform with 15 long days still to go.
Section 4. The daily archery threat, surviving solo. So around day 20, Alison is just wrestling with this extreme boredom, literally talking to inanimate objects just to cope with the silence. But that quiet misery, it's quickly interrupted by a sinister, new, mechanical threat completely designed to test her sanity. The rules for this one are relentless and exhausting. First, the ground beneath her platform is suddenly covered in razor-sharp spikes. Then, once a day, at completely random, unpredictable intervals, a balloon rises up. Alison has to grab a bow and arrow and shoot it. If she misses, the balloon keeps going up into the spikes, pops, and she loses yet another vital piece of her ever-shrinking floor. Talk about introducing a 24/7 state of pure paranoia. And this is exactly where we see the sheer mental exhaustion of the isolation finally get to the previously unbreakable Alison. She actually starts missing her shots. As the wind catches her arrows and she literally loses crucial floor space by her own hand, she admits, "I'm taking my own floor away. I'm no better than Angus at this point." The endless waiting and that constant paranoia are just completely destroying our focus.
But just as she's starting to spiral, this highly surprising moment of relief arrives out of nowhere. A fully built Starbucks is literally lifted onto the platform, complete with a personal barista named Josiah. I mean, this gives her a massive, sudden boost to her morale and her caffeine levels, obviously. And even better, there's a $50,000 Starbucks gift card hidden somewhere in her supplies. Because her floor is so incredibly small at this point, she finds it almost immediately, locking in a massive financial win right before the final hurdle.
Which leads us to Section 5, the $500,000 choice, ego versus logic. It is the final day, and the host returns with the ultimate temptation. This is an absolute masterclass in psychological pressure, specifically designed to test her risk management right at the finish line. I mean, would you risk it all for $500,000? Alison is offered the chance to cross the exact same 30-foot balance beam that took out Angus. If she walks across and back, she doubles her $250,000 prize pool. But if she falls, she loses every single thing she has suffered for over the last month. Let's really break down the stark mathematics of this ego trap. Option A, the safe bet. She simply walks away with a guaranteed $250,000 in cash, plus that $50,000 gift card, an undeniably life-changing amount of money. Then there's option B, the gamble. She attempts this wildly unstable beam for a grand total of $500,000, but faces the very real, terrifying possibility of falling and leaving with absolutely $0. You can almost hear the intense internal wrestling match happening in her head as she weighs these options. She says, "My ego is telling me I can do it, and that's the fastest I will ever make that much money in my life." She's dealing with heavy pressure from her own competitive spirit, especially since she previously claimed the beam looked easy, and she's got the physical presence of her brothers right there, actively cheering for her to take this dramatic risk. But the absolutely crucial point here is how she resolves this tension. Alison says no. In a brilliantly logical and totally grounded move, she chooses the guaranteed payout over her own ego. She realizes that surviving for 30 brutal days just to go home with absolutely nothing to prove a point, that's foolish. She tells them to drop the $500,000 check, officially securing her massive winnings. And honestly, this leads to an incredibly satisfying post-game moment. The host lets Alison attempt the balance beam just for fun, right? Literally no money on the line anymore. She steps out onto the wood and loses her balance almost immediately. She falls. This perfectly, undeniably proves that checking her ego and making this strictly logical decision quite literally saved her entire fortune. So we'll wrap up the explainer with this final provocative thought. When the stakes are that high, would your ego let you walk away? It's incredibly easy for us, sitting in the comfort of our homes, to say we'd play it safe. But picture it. 100 feet in the air, a huge crowd watching, adrenaline absolutely pumping, and double the money dangling right in front of your face. Could you really check your own ego for $300,000? It's a fascinating look at human psychology.
Thanks so much for hanging out with me today, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.